The county is responsible for implementing state law and policy. What do you consider to be the top priorities of the county government, and what would you do to ensure those priorities are met?
Top priorities of government, of course, is going to be realistic regulation. It's going to be bringing in infrastructure in ways for the things that we can't afford to do for ourselves. It is going to be, most importantly, also the protection of our people, the protection of our community. You see everything that's been going on right now. It's been out of control. Here recently, I got a phone call, or actually a text message in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. A friend of mine is living down Mission Creek. His wife's going to be giving birth any day, and they're out there doing Bernies, and they're out there making a bunch of noise and partying, and we can't get a police officer out there. Down here at our gang, we have a gentleman, I always knew him as Uncle Ron. He's not my uncle, but we all just call him Uncle Ron. He's got MS. He's in a wheelchair. They're out there. There's a guy out there harassing the customers, threatening to hurt everybody. And here's Uncle Ron, because he can't get a police officer down there, out there in his wheelchair with a bat to scare him off. We need to have enough protection on the streets to back up our own officers. If we can't give them the protection they need, how do we expect to let them protect us? Now, when it comes to representing government, you got to be able to represent the people first and foremost. You need to have a group of citizens together where they can have an appeals committee, where they can have direct input on what's going to happen when the county gets out of control. If you ask somebody to stand and they don't want to stand, what you get is a lie. If you ask somebody to stand and they don't know what they're doing, what you get is a lie. No more lies. Let's get somebody who knows what they're doing, and let's actually stand.
Okay.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, I would love to. The county is responsible for implementing state law and policy. What do you consider to be the top priorities of the county government, and what would you do to ensure those priorities are met?
Thank you. I think the top priority in Mason County is having some kind of shared vision of where we want to go in the future. I think that we don't have a direction that we can agree on, and when we don't have a direction that we can agree on, we can go in any direction, and so far we're going in several at the same time. So I think that we need a direction. I think we need a way to get to that direction, and I think a way to do that is what I call a partnership for progress. We have a lot of very good people in this county, people in county government, people who work for the county and the services. We have great teachers all over the county. We have chambers of commerce that are dedicated to trying to improve the situation. But all of those organizations are working in parallel. They're not working together. And what I'd like to do is create a partnership for progress that brings the educators and the business people and the services together, commonly identifies problems, agrees on a direction, and move forward together to achieve that direction. Thanks.
Doug.
Well, as far as the priorities are concerned, one of the biggest ones, I think, is probably the Belfair bypass. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, is aware of what's going on there. Another issue that's heavy in the county is financing. Everybody's fighting. We've got each individual department is begging for money. It's got to be controlled in some way, and the only way I see to control that is to bring back the financial clerk. And I don't know that that's going to happen, but I think we should try it. Thank you.
And Travis.
I'm back. All right. I believe that we all have to ask ourselves, what is the role of government? All right. And when we ask ourselves that, we'll find out exactly what government should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Essential government services like public safety are some of the first things we need to properly fund. All right. We've had a lot of crime, a lot of drugs. We need to get the sheriff's department properly funded again so that they can perform their mission to protect all of us, the whole public. So when you're talking about essential government services, do they benefit all of the taxpayers? Do they benefit all of us? Now let me give you an example. We have raised taxes a minuscule amount on all of us in Mason County to provide for mental health. Now this isn't just mental health. This is drug rehabilitation. Okay? And that might sound nice, but the reality is that it's a moral hazard. Basically, what happens is when a drug dealer or a drug user thinks about, oh, I think I might use drugs. Well, then they say, oh, well, government will take care of me. It's going to be okay because they have mental rehabilitation or mental health. It's not. And guess what? We have to stop tricking the voters like that. We have to stop tricking the taxpayers. It's not working. We spent a lot of money on it. We could have used that money on the sheriff's department. Thank you.
Okay, stay there.
Okay.
Because we have one more question for you. How do you balance economic growth with environmental responsibility?
Well, that's kind of a two-part for me. I'm a big believer in the free market. So, and I kind of touched on this earlier. Central planning doesn't work. And when government central plans, it gets bigger and it never works. All right? Businesses need to come in on their own account. We need to reduce the amount of regulations, make the regulatory environment predictable, and businesses, not government, creates jobs. Businesses will come in and create jobs. All right? And as far as protecting the environment, that's all. There's three ways Robert Coe said in the 90s. He won an award for this, by the way, that you can protect the environment. One is enforcement, two is regulation, and three is property rights. Now, I've already said before, I'm a big believer in property rights. If we all respect each other's property rights, I can't pollute your property, and you can't pollute mine. I would have a lawsuit against you. This is how you responsibly protect the environment. Enforcement doesn't work. We don't have the money to do it, and we don't have the manpower, and regulation doesn't work either because it's killing our businesses. And this is a big reason why we're fighting the GMA right now. Everyone wants to tinker with it. I want to throw it away. I'm going to work with the legislature to throw it away because guess who should be regulating how our own growth? The county should be regulating their own growth, not the state. King County can regulate its own growth with its cities, and Mason County with its rural communities can regulate its own growth. Thank you.
Okay, Doug. I would love to say that again. How do you balance economic growth with environmental responsibility?
Well, the economic growth is going to come around by working together with everybody as far as economic development, Mason Chamber, both chambers, Sheldon and here. The environmental issues are going to come about due to the fact that there are rules and regulations that have to be applied. That's the best of that.
Denny.
Economic development and environmental protection, more or less. Okay. I mentioned earlier that I thought we needed a partnership for progress in Mason County. Such a partnership would incorporate growth and protection of the environment. I think that we're all aware and we all respect the fact that Mason County is really an environmental paradise. There are very few places on the planet as pristine as this place can be. We need to protect it. We need to utilize our resources responsibly. But I think we also need to think about how can we grow our economy in ways that maintain our environment. I believe that we need small business, as has been mentioned by some of the earlier speakers. We have a program that started at the Port of Allen, hosted by the Port of Allen. It's called Washington Cash. It's developing small business skills. Those are the kinds of skills that are going to be important to Mason County. I believe that WorkSource efforts, the efforts of people that are working on Washington Cash, efforts of the Chambers of Commerce and so on, all those hands together would, one, grow the economy, and two, at the same time, help protect our environment.
And Randy.
It's actually a pretty tough question, because anytime you have any type of growth, it is going to affect your environment. There's just no way around it. Now, obviously, we have a few tools we already use, such as tax incentives for not touching your ground. We have some other things such as land trusts, where you can actually sell your land to certain organizations who will keep it in trust and protect it and take care of it. One of the first things that we have to do if we want to have good economic growth and protect the environment is open up the areas that are supposed to be for economic growth. Belfair has been under a moratorium since 2009. You have not been able to build, subdivide, or do anything here in the Belfair UGA since 2009. Everybody that's had to build outside of the UGA. How much sense does that make? They create the UGA in order to protect the environment and have people build here, and then they tell you can't build here. Well, if we can open up our UGAs, allow for responsible building here, we are going to automatically protect our environment. I believe that's how you do it, but you've still got to make an effort to get it done. Just because you think this, somebody's still got to stand up to ecology and explain to them, this is what we want, this is what's got to happen in order to protect our environment.